Ever since weapons of mass destruction like the atomic bomb and then the hydrogen bomb were made, there has been the ever-looming threat of them being used. And atomic bombs have been used before. In August of 1945, the United States detonated 2 atomic bombs over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those bombs killed 210,000 people. That was near the end of the Second World War, and after that there was the Cold War, an arms race to create more nuclear warheads than the other countries. This race was mainly between the United States and the Soviet Union and was said to end in 1991 when the Soviet Union ended. Now, it is estimated that both the US and Russia have over 6,000 nuclear warheads according to the Arms Control Association. France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea are estimated to be in possession of nuclear warheads as well, but in far lower numbers. So, our question today is, what if China, or any other country, nuked America? First, we need to specify which type of nuclear bomb is being deployed. Both an atomic and a hydrogen bomb are devastating with their impact. But of the 2 nuclear bombs, a hydrogen bomb is much worse. The 2 bombs release energy in different ways. In an atomic bomb, a bigger atom is split into 2 smaller ones to cause this energy. This is nuclear fission. Hydrogen bombs work using fusion instead of fission. It fuses together 2 or more atoms into a bigger atom. To get the energy to do this, hydrogen weapons have a nuclear fission weapon inside them too. The fission weapon releases a huge amount of energy that can set off the fusion. Since China is in today's title, we will use one of their intercontinental ballistic missiles for our example, the Dongfeng 5. Second, let's determine where the bomb would be dropped. If it is coming from China, then the west coast is well within range. But depending on where the launch is, from there may be no place out of reach in the United States. I can't say I know where a nuclear bomb will be set off, but for this example I chose the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C. And now third, is it an air burst or a burst at the surface for the detonation? I will go through the effects of both. If a nuke was detonated in an airburst, that means it detonated, you guessed it, in the air. It is high enough that the fireball does not touch the ground. In a 3 megaton airburst, there is a fireball nearly 3 miles square. This is a flash of light that may make you run to a window to see what happened. But then comes the blast from the pressure of the nuclear explosion. Since light travels faster, it comes after. The blast damage from the detonation is moderate in an area of 124 miles square, and light in an area of 986 miles square. For a better idea, the light blast damage reaches halfway to Baltimore from the center of the blast in our figure of Washington, D.C. Now, light blast damage causes glass windows to break, which can cause a flurry of glass to pierce those looking out their windows, looking at that flash of light. Moderate damage causes residential businesses to collapse. When the residences collapse, fires are likely to happen, injuries are universal, and fatalities are widespread. There is also the thermal radiation with the blast that produces third-degree burns. These are burns that destroy 2 layers of skin. Skin may appear unnatural shades of black, brown, white, or yellow, but may not hurt since the nerve endings may have been damaged. The area that receives these burns is 467 miles square. The estimated fatalities of an airburst are over 800,000, and the estimated injured is over 1.2 million. Additionally, since a city's center was targeted in our example, it is likely that the major hospitals in the city are damaged or wrecked completely. So getting help for the large amount of injured people is another challenge. And as I said before, this is an example for an air blast, so this one doesn't include much nuclear fallout. Now for a surface detonation. This time the fireball is over 4.6 miles square. Anything inside this fireball is effectively vaporized. The city center of Washington, gone. Next is the area of acute radiation. It is nearly 10 miles square. The dose of radiation is likely fatal in about 1 month, if not immediately. There's also heavy blast damage. In an area of nearly 12 miles square, there are near 100% fatalities from the force. Heavily built concrete buildings are either demolished or severely damaged. This time, the moderate blast damage reaches 4 miles from the detonation site. The light blast damage reaches over 10 miles from the detonation site, and the thermal radiation of third-degree burns is felt as far as 10.7 miles from the target. The initial damage leads to over 600,000 dead and upwards of 600,000 injured, but this doesn't include fallout, which is much more when it comes to a surface detonation. And so, as I just said, the biggest difference between an airstrike and a surface detonation is nuclear fallout. Nuclear fallout is the radioactive residual material propelled into the air after a nuclear blast. It gets this name because this dust and ash falls from the sky. As seen here, the explosion and immediate effects of a surface detonation may have a smaller area of impact, but the area affected by nuclear fallout is much, much greater. The number of those affected by nuclear fallout is impacted by the precautions people take. Fallout is at its worst during the first few hours after the detonation. This is when the levels of radiation are highest. Due to winds, fallout will be pushed and can affect many miles out from the original detonation site. At this time, someone may breathe in or otherwise come in contact with fallout. The larger the dose of radiation, the sooner the effects of exposure will appear, and the higher the probability of death. This is according to the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. For example, survivors of the atomic bomb as well as Chernobyl emergency workers both had exposure to high levels of radiation. Many developed acute radiation sickness. At Chernobyl, of the 134 plant workers or firefighters that received acute radiation sickness, 28 died from radiation injuries. Outside of the high impacted areas after a nuclear detonation, there will be slightly less fallout. A moderate amount of radiation can lead to skin reddening or nausea. Then there will be less fallout the further from the detonation. But even if a person takes precautions with fallout or is further away, the effects of fallout are still widespread. A person can still be exposed to radioactive particles long after they perceive them as gone. The dust may have come into contact with plants or crops. Pets and wild animals are also affected. The dust and ash in the air, once settled, goes into the soil and affects the area for a long time. Prolonged exposure does damage. For example, if you were to eat a plant that was affected by radioactive fallout, or drink the milk from a cow that was affected by radioactive fallout, it is then in your system. Radiation disrupts the cells in our bodies. The damage to DNA can cause cancer. It may also cause birth defects in children. There is a risk of chemical changes in cells that can either kill a cell or make it abnormal. So, that is the beginning to what it would look like if China or any other country nuked America. A person would be impacted relative to where they were during the explosion, and what bomb it was, and where it was detonated. No matter where in the world a nuclear bomb may go off, it is obvious that the effects are devastating. The target area would have heavily damaged or collapsing buildings, hundreds of thousands to millions of people would be dead, injured, or facing other adverse effects. This is both after the impact and years later if a surface impact leads to increased fallout. Thank you for tuning into this video. To simulate the effects, I used an interactive browser app called NukeMap. It was created by Alex Wellerstein and will be linked below. Check it out for yourself to see the effects a nuclear impact can have around the world. If you would like learning more about life's biggest questions, give us a like and subscribe, and if you have a question of your own, feel free to comment it below. Have a good day!